The house looked normal from the outside, just like any other family home on the quiet street. The curtains were drawn in the evening, the porch light came on at the same time every night, and children's laughter could sometimes be heard spilling into the yard. To neighbors, it was a happy family, nothing unusual, nothing troubling. But inside, the mother had started noticing little things that didn't sit right with her. She was a careful woman, always paying attention to details. At first, it was the way her husband avoided certain conversations when she asked about his day. He would smile and brush things off, saying he was tired or that it wasn't important. Then there were moments when she returned home earlier than expected. She would find the living room strangely rearranged, or the children would act quiet, as though they were hiding something. None of it seemed like a big issue on its own, but together it created a feeling she couldn't ignore. The mother loved her husband deeply. They had been married for many years, building their life piece by piece. She trusted him, yet there was an ache inside her that said something was happening behind her back. It wasn't the ache of jealousy, it was something different. She couldn't explain it, but it kept her up at night. She stared at the ceiling in the dark, her mind turning over every possibility. One morning, after sending the children off to school, she stood in the empty kitchen with her coffee growing cold in her hands. She decided she needed answers, not gossip, not guesses, but the truth. And to get the truth, she had to see it with her own eyes. That was the moment the idea of the hidden camera came to her. It wasn't an easy decision. She paced the floor, wondering if it was fair. She argued with herself quietly, whispering thoughts in the silence of the house. Was it wrong to spy on her own husband? Would she regret it if she found nothing at all? But the stronger thought was this: if something was truly happening, she needed proof. Without it, her suspicions would only grow, and the silence between them would get heavier. Later that week, she went to a small electronics shop in the city. She asked careful questions to the shopkeeper, who showed her a device small enough to fit in the corner of a bookshelf, disguised as an ordinary household item. The mother held it in her hand, feeling both nervous and determined. She bought it, tucked it into her bag, and left without looking back. That night, after the house was quiet and her husband was asleep, she quietly set up the camera. Her hands trembled as she positioned it in the living room, angling it just right to capture the space where most of the family's time was spent. She checked the blinking light once, twice, 3 times before covering it with a small decoration so it wouldn't draw attention. Her heart pounded with every step, as though the walls themselves knew her secret. Over the next few days, she tried to act normal. She cooked meals, smiled at the children, and talked casually with her husband. But inside, her mind was restless, counting the hours until she could review the footage. Finally, one morning when she was alone, she sat at her desk, plugged the memory card into her laptop, and opened the first video. The screen flickered to life, and there was her living room still, ordinary, like she always saw it. She watched her husband walk into the frame, sit on the couch, and sigh as though the weight of the world was on his shoulders. The first hour showed nothing unusual. He read a book, got up for a glass of water, then sat back down. But as she fast-forwarded, her eyes caught something unexpected. Her husband began doing things she never imagined. Not secret phone calls, not sneaking food, not hiding from responsibility. It was something so different that her breath caught in her throat. She leaned closer to the screen, eyes wide, her hand covering her mouth in disbelief. At first, she thought it was a one-time thing. But when she watched the following day's recordings, she realized it was happening regularly. The footage revealed a side of her husband that he never showed her, never mentioned, not even once in their years of marriage. Her emotions swirled: confusion, shock, and an ache of curiosity. She could barely believe that the man she thought she knew so well was capable of this. The mother sat back in her chair, staring at the paused video on the screen. The truth was right there, captured by the hidden camera she had secretly installed. She had wanted answers, and now she had them, but they were far more shocking than anything she had imagined. Her hands shook as she closed the laptop. The footage was safe, stored on the card. She knew that if anyone else saw what she had seen, the world would not react with silence. It would spread, it would stir people's hearts, and it would change everything about how her family was seen. For the first time, she wondered if she had uncovered something much bigger than a private family matter. But for now, she said nothing. She simply looked around her quiet home, the same home that suddenly felt different, and whispered to herself, "What do I do next?" The next days felt heavy for the mother. After watching the recordings, she could not stop thinking about them. Every time she looked at her husband, her mind went back to the scenes she had seen on the screen. She had expected to find something ordinary, maybe even disappointing, but what she found was far more surprising. The images replayed in her head again and again, as if her memory wanted to remind her that this was real and not just a dream. She woke up each morning with a strange feeling in her chest. On one hand, she wanted to confront him immediately and ask why he had kept such a side of himself hidden. On the other hand, she was scared of what his answer might be. So, she stayed silent, pretending everything was normal, though inside her thoughts were racing. Her husband, unaware of her secret, continued with his routine. He cooked breakfast on weekends, played with the children in the living room, and sat down with her at the table for evening tea. But now, she noticed small details that seemed different. When he thought no one was looking, his expression softened in a way she hadn't noticed before. He seemed like a man carrying something inside him, something he didn't know how to share. One afternoon, while the children were napping, the mother sat in front of her laptop again. Her hands hesitated, but curiosity won. She opened another file from the hidden camera. Once more, her living room appeared on the screen, ordinary and quiet. She fast-forwarded until her husband walked into view. He looked around as if making sure nobody was there, then he began the same act she had witnessed before. The mother leaned closer, her eyes locked on the screen. What she saw touched her heart in ways she didn't expect. It was not something harmful, not something dangerous, but it was unusual, something the world would never expect from him. Her husband, a man known to be strict and reserved, was showing a softer side that almost looked childlike. It was shocking because it was so different from the picture he painted outside. She covered her mouth with her hand again, not out of fear this time, but out of wonder. She could not understand why he chose to keep this hidden from her, why he never spoke of it. The questions filled her head. Did he think she would laugh at him? Did he worry she wouldn't accept this part of him? The mother's heart grew heavier, not only because of the secret but also because she realized her husband must have been carrying this burden of silence for years. Days turned into weeks, and the mother continued to watch. Each recording revealed the same thing, her husband repeating that act when nobody else was around. With every new file she opened, her emotions grew more complicated. At first, it was pure shock. Then it turned into curiosity. Now, she felt a mixture of compassion and confusion. The children, of course, noticed nothing. They carried on with their laughter, their homework, their small arguments about toys. But the mother noticed how often they asked for their father to join them, how their eyes lit up when he entered the room. She began to wonder if they too sensed this hidden side of him, even without words or proof. Perhaps children saw more than adults sometimes. At night, while lying next to her husband, she would turn her head and study his face in the faint glow of the lamp. She saw the lines of responsibility carved into his forehead, the weight of years carried in silence. She wanted to reach out, to ask him directly, but her voice always failed her. She feared that asking would break the delicate wall holding their home together. One evening, her close friend visited for tea. The mother tried to stay calm, but the secret weighed heavily on her. As they sat by the window, her friend noticed her unease. "Is something troubling you?" the friend asked gently. The mother hesitated, then whispered that she had discovered something about her husband. She did not explain everything, but her words carried enough weight for her friend to know it was serious. Her friend leaned in, eyes wide with concern, and urged her to be careful. "Secrets have power," she said softly. "Once shared, they no longer belong to you." These words stayed in the mother's heart long after her friend left. That night, unable to sleep, she replayed the recordings yet again. This time, she didn't only see shock, she saw a story unfolding. A story about a man who hid his true self, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of habit. The more she watched, the more she realized how extraordinary this truth was. The world always saw men like her husband as strong, serious, and unshakable. But here was proof that even such men carried softer, unexpected sides. By now, she knew the truth would not remain hidden forever. She had recorded too much, collected too many files. If she decided to share even a small part of it, the world would not look away. People would talk, argue, laugh, or cry, but they would not stay silent. The mother sat at her desk once again, the memory card in her hand. Her heart pounded as she asked herself the question she had been avoiding: should she reveal this to the world? Should she keep it locked away, or should she let others see what she had seen? For now, she placed the card back in the drawer and closed it gently. She whispered to herself, "Not yet." But in her heart, she knew a storm was waiting just beyond the horizon, and once it broke, life for her family and perhaps even for many others would never be the same again. The following days brought the story to a point where silence was no longer possible. The mother had carried the weight of the hidden footage long enough, but the truth inside those recordings was too powerful to keep to herself. What had started as a private search for answers was slowly growing into something far bigger, something that would soon touch the outside world. She had watched the videos so many times that she could almost predict her husband's movements before they happened. Every time he stepped into the room, every time he looked around nervously, every time he carried out the act she had discovered, it all became familiar, yet still unbelievable. It was strange to think she knew something so unusual about him while the rest of the world saw only the serious, quiet man he always appeared to be. One evening, she sat at the dining table while her husband and children were in the other room. Her laptop was open, and the memory card rested beside it. She placed her hand on it gently, as though it were fragile glass. She thought about her children, about the man she had married, and about the millions of strangers out there who would react if they ever saw this. Would people mock him? Would they be inspired? Would her family be pulled into a storm they could never escape? Her heart was torn, but deep down she knew what she would do. The act her husband was hiding was not something shameful or harmful, it was shocking because it was human, raw, and emotional. The world was always so quick to put people into boxes, but this footage shattered those boxes completely. She thought about how many people out there lived with secrets, afraid to show who they really were. Maybe her husband's truth could speak to them. The moment came late at night when she uploaded a short clip. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the button, sending the footage out into the unknown. She did not write a caption, only left the video as it was. The image of her husband, caught in that unexpected act, was now public. She closed the laptop afterward, her heart racing, and sat silently in the dark, listening to the sound of her family sleeping upstairs. The next morning, her phone began buzzing. At first, it was only 1 or 2 notifications, messages from friends asking, "Is this real?" But soon, the sound became constant, a flood of alerts filling her screen. The video had been shared thousands of times within hours. Strangers from different countries were commenting, expressing disbelief, laughter, tears, and amazement. The world had seen what she had seen, and the reaction was explosive. By midday, news outlets had already picked up the story. Headlines filled the internet: "Husband's secret act stuns viewers worldwide, hidden camera reveals the unexpected, and this video will change how you see people forever." The mother watched in awe as reporters replayed the footage again and again, each one trying to explain the meaning behind it. Some people were critical. They said the mother had invaded her husband's privacy. Others praised her for bringing out something deeply human. Millions of people debated online about what the act meant, and why it touched them so strongly. It wasn't just a viral video, it had become a global conversation. The husband, however, did not yet know. He returned home from work that evening looking tired, unaware that his face had been broadcast around the world. The mother's chest tightened as she watched him remove his shoes and ask about dinner, just as he always did. For a moment, she wanted to hold the secret longer, to protect him from the storm waiting outside. But she knew it was impossible. When she finally told him, his face froze. At first, he thought she was joking. Then she showed him the countless messages, the news articles, the video playing on every platform. His expression shifted: shock, anger, shame, and finally silence. He sat down heavily, his hands covering his face. The mother waited quietly, her own heart aching. She did not want to hurt him, she wanted the world to see what she saw. But the look on his face made her realize the cost of truth. They sat together for a long time without speaking, only the distant sound of their children laughing upstairs breaking the silence. As the days passed, the video continued to spread. Celebrities reposted it, adding their own words of support or humor. Psychologists discussed it on television, explaining what it revealed about hidden emotions. Ordinary people sent messages saying they felt less alone after watching it. The husband had become an unwilling symbol, and the world was not letting go. At first, he struggled. He avoided eye contact, avoided public places, and avoided even looking at himself in the mirror. But slowly, something began to change. Letters and emails arrived from strangers who said his act had given them courage. People wrote about their own hidden sides, their own fears, and how the video made them feel understood. The husband began to see that maybe this exposure wasn't a punishment, it was a bridge. The mother stood by his side through it all. She knew the choice to share the video had changed their lives forever, and though she sometimes doubted herself, she also saw the bigger picture. What she had revealed was not just about one man, but about countless people who lived behind masks. The shock that had swept the world was slowly turning into reflection, even inspiration. By the end of the week, their home was no longer quiet and ordinary. Cameras lined the street, reporters called daily, and neighbors whispered with curiosity. Yet inside, the family was learning to face the truth together. The mother, once unsure and restless, now felt a strange calm. She had sought answers, and though the outcome was more than she imagined, she could see the meaning behind it. She looked at her husband one evening as he sat with their children, more open and gentle than she had ever seen him before. In that moment, she realized the act that had shocked the whole world might also be the act that saved their family from silence, from distance, and from the fear of showy. The storm outside their home grew bigger each day. What had started as a small clip shared online had now become a worldwide topic. Television anchors replayed the video, newspapers wrote stories about it, and social media was filled with endless debates. Everyone had an opinion about the husband's act, and everywhere the family turned, people were talking about them. The mother could feel the weight of it all. When she went to the grocery store, strangers stared at her. Some gave her supportive smiles, others whispered behind her back. Even the children noticed. At school, classmates mentioned the video, some curious and some teasing. Their simple, quiet life had been replaced with a spotlight they never asked for. The husband struggled the most. For many years, he had built his image as a serious, disciplined man who rarely showed emotion. Now, the world had seen a softer, vulnerable side of him, something he had always kept private. At first, he felt embarrassed, almost angry that the world was laughing and crying over something he never meant to share. But with time, he began to notice something different. Not everyone was mocking him. Many were touched, even inspired. Letters and messages poured in from people he had never met, thanking him for unknowingly giving them courage to be themselves. News reporters camped outside their home, hoping for interviews. The family avoided them, but the noise never seemed to stop. Inside the house, conversations turned serious. The husband asked his wife why she had done it, why she had shared something so personal. She told him the truth. She wanted to understand him, and when she finally did, she realized the world might need to see it too. At first, her words hurt him. But as he thought about the reaction, he began to see what she meant. The act that shocked everyone was not ugly or shameful, it was deeply human. And while it felt strange to be at the center of global attention, it also opened a door for conversations that had been ignored for too long. Still, the debates outside continued. Some said the mother was brave for exposing a hidden truth, others said she had betrayed her husband's trust. Experts argued on talk shows. Social media split into two sides, one defending the family, the other criticizing them. Yet no matter which side people were on, nobody could deny that the video had touched something universal. The children, though too young to fully understand, felt the change in their parents. Their father, once so strict and closed, began showing a lighter side at home. Perhaps it was because the world had already seen it, so there was no reason to hide anymore. He laughed more often, played with them more freely, and even shared stories from his childhood he had never spoken of before. The mother watched quietly, realizing that in some strange way, the hidden camera had unlocked a part of her husband that had been buried for years. One evening, the family gathered around the dinner table. The husband looked at his wife and said softly, "I never thought I would be exposed like this. I felt ashamed at first, but maybe this is not a punishment. Maybe it's a chance." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of acceptance. As weeks passed, the family's story continued to spread across countries. People began creating movements and groups online, encouraging others to share their hidden sides, to show the world that everyone carried secrets and emotions. The husband's act had turned into a symbol, something much bigger than their small home. But with fame came challenges. The family's privacy was often invaded. Reporters chased them, neighbors gossiped, and every action they took was judged. At times, the mother questioned whether she had made the right choice. Yet, each time she saw a message from someone saying the video had changed their life, she held on to the belief that the world needed to see it. One day, a large television network invited the husband for an interview. At first, he refused. He did not want to face cameras again. But after many discussions with his wife, he agreed. On the day of the interview, millions of people watched as he spoke honestly about why he had kept that side of himself hidden for so long. He admitted his fears, his doubts, and the weight of trying to appear strong all the time. His words were simple but powerful, and the world listened. That night, as the family sat together, there was a strange peace in their home. The storm was still raging outside, but inside, they had found a new balance. The husband was no longer just a man carrying secrets, the wife was no longer just the one who revealed them, and the children were learning what it meant to accept people fully, flaws, surprises, and all. The mother realized something important. The hidden camera she had set up was not only about catching her husband in an act, it was about discovering truth, breaking walls of silence, and showing that even ordinary families could hold extraordinary lessons for the world. And so, as the days went on, the family walked forward together, stronger than before, even as the world kept watching. The storm that had shaken their lives slowly began to calm, but its mark remained forever. The world had already seen what the hidden camera had revealed, and nothing could erase that. Yet, as time passed, the family began to discover something important. Sometimes, a shocking moment is not the end of a story, it is the beginning of a new chapter. The husband, once burdened by embarrassment, had grown into a man who no longer feared showing his true self. At first, he had resisted the attention. He avoided the cameras, the articles, and the endless stream of comments online. But little by little, he began to see the deeper meaning behind it all. His act, though unusual, had touched millions. People from different countries, backgrounds, and languages were moved. Letters kept arriving, stories from strangers who confessed they too had parts of themselves they hid from the world. The mother watched as her husband changed before her eyes. He laughed more openly now, hugged his children more tightly, and spoke with a softness she had not heard in years. The man who once carried himself like a wall was now becoming someone freer, lighter, and more human. She felt a sense of peace knowing that what had once been a secret was now a bridge connecting him to others. But the journey was not without challenges. Public opinion remained divided. Some still criticized her decision to record and release the video. There were debates about privacy, about trust, about whether families should ever share such personal moments. The mother carried the weight of those criticisms, sometimes wondering if she had gone too far. But then, every time she saw her husband smiling with their children or read a letter from someone whose life had changed because of the video, she knew there was purpose behind it all. One day, the family received an invitation to speak at a global conference. The theme was Truth in Ordinary Lives, and they were asked to share their story. The husband was hesitant, but the mother encouraged him. Together, they stood on a stage in front of thousands of people. For the first time, the husband told the world in his own words why he had kept his act hidden, why he had feared being judged, and how the video had changed his life. His speech was simple, but it struck deep. He said, "I spent years hiding a part of myself because I thought people would laugh. But when the world finally saw it, I realized that laughter is not the worst thing silence is. We all carry sides of ourselves we're afraid to show, but hiding them only makes us weaker. Sharing them makes us free." The crowd stood in applause, and for the first time, the husband felt proud of what had once brought him shame. The mother, standing beside him, held his hand tightly. She knew the journey had been painful, but she also knew it had given them something priceless, a truth that could no longer be buried. Back home, life slowly returned to a new kind of normal. Reporters eventually left, the online debates quieted, and the family learned how to live with their unexpected fame. Their children grew up watching their parents not as perfect people, but as real ones, flawed, brave, and honest. The mother often reminded them, "The world may see one side of you, but you must always know all sides of yourself." Years later, the video was still remembered. It became a symbol, often replayed whenever people spoke about truth, vulnerability, and the courage to be real. The family's story was told in books, documentaries, and classrooms. But for the mother, the most important part was not the fame or the recognition, it was the transformation she saw in her husband and in her own heart. She had started with suspicion, with restless nights and unanswered questions. But in the end, she discovered that sometimes the answers we find are far more surprising and more powerful than we ever expect. She had set up the hidden camera searching for truth, and what she uncovered shocked the world. Yet what mattered most was not the shock, but the lesson it carried. Behind every person, no matter how ordinary, lies a story that can change everything. And so, the family lived on not just as a household caught in a viral moment, but as a reminder that truth, once revealed, has the power to heal, to connect, and to inspire the entire world.